Yang berbahagia ketua-ketua setiausaha kementerian, ketua-ketua perwakilan diplomatik Malaysia yang sekarang ini berada bersama-sama dengan kita secara talian terus. Ada yang terpaksa berjaga di waktu malam, pagi dan sebagainya. Terima kasih atas kesudian tuan-tuan dan puan-puan bersama-sama dengan kita pada hari ini. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, alhamdulillah, syukur kita pada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana pada hari ini yang amat berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Perdana Menteri Malaysia, dapat bersama-sama dengan kita. Saya dan rakan-rakan dari keluarga KLN, Kementerian Luar Negeri yang amat berhormat, ingin merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan atas kesudian yang amat berhormat meluangkan masa bersama-sama dengan kita meskipun kita sedia maklum jadual harian yang amat padat. Alhamdulillah, berkat daripada our persuasion for you to come. Alhamdulillah, today you are with us. Alhamdulillah. Majlis penutup ini juga yang saya sebutkan tadi turut diikuti oleh perwakilan diplomatik kita. Sungguhnya kesempatan ini perlu dimanfaatkan kita dengan sepenuhnya untuk mendengar secara terus daripada yang amat berhormat sendiri tentang aspirasi besar Malaysia Madani serta harapan dan visi yang amat berhormat berhubung dengan dasar luar Malaysia. Secara peribadi, saya tidak dapat menyembunyikan keturujaan saya terhadap sesi ini kerana saya menganggapnya sebagai pada petang ini sebagai grand finale. Setelah hampir 2 hari kita berkampung dalam pemukiman Kementerian Luar Negeri ini. Secara tamsilannya, Wisma Putra Retreat ini boleh diumpamakan seperti setitis air di padang pasir yang kontang, yang mampu membenihkan pohon yang rindang. Ia akan memanfaatkan kelompok yang lebih besar dan pastinya wajah baru Malaysia di bawah kepimpinan yang amat berhormat Perdana Menteri melalui Malaysia Madani ini akan dapat kita laksanakan secara bersama. Saya ingin mengambil kesempatan ini untuk memaklumkan kepada yang amat berhormat tentang sesi pemukiman kita ini. Setelah berada secara peribadi, selama 100 hari, saya dan rakan-rakan merasakan terdapat keperluan bagi Wisma Putra menjajarkan semula orientasinya di bawah kepimpinan yang amat berhormat Perdana Menteri. Izinkan saya memetik kenyataan Dr. Lai Yu Ming pagi tadi, ketika mana beliau membicarakan tentang soal soft power. Beliau menyebut dan menggambarkan yang amat berhormat Perdana Menteri sebagai charismatic leader dengan ciri antarabangsa dan global. Berdasarkan ciri-ciri dan kualiti tersebut, kita yakin yang amat berhormat mampu melonjakkan profil dan martabat negara ke mercu yang tinggi. Bagi mendapatkan input dari sudut pandang yang lebih luas dan berbeza, sesi pemukiman ini tidak hanya melibatkan pegawai-pegawai Wisma Putra, malahan sejumlah pemegang taruh dari pelbagai latar belakang yang terdiri daripada mantan menteri, mantan duta, ahli Majlis Perundingan Dasar Luar Negeri, Consultative Councils on Foreign Policy, dan pakar-pakar bidang yang telah turut diundang untuk saling berbahas dan bertukar-tukar idea mengenai isu-isu yang telah dikenal pasti. Tuntasnya yang mencerminkan pendekatan musyawarah dan keterangkuman yang dicerapkan oleh kementerian ini dalam penetapan hala tuju isu luar yang berkepentingan kepada negara. Pada hemat saya, perbincangan dan pertukaran pandangan yang telah berlangsung adalah bersifat menyeluruh telus dan terbuka, bertenaga, lively, engaging serta kritis lagi kreatif. Di kesempatan yang terluang ini, saya ingin menzahirkan penghargaan saya kepada ke atas penglibatan aktif barisan ahli CCFP yang telah turut hadir bersama kita sejak semalam, walaupun sibuk dan terikat dengan komitmen masing-masing. Izinkan saya memperkenalkan kepada Yang Amat Berhormat antara mereka yang hadir bersama-sama dengan kita sejak semalam hinggalah pada saat ini. Antaranya ialah Tan Sri Dr. Jamilah Mahmud yang ada bersama-sama dengan kita. Datuk Dr. Hamzah Ahmad Kasim, Profesor Dr. Lai Yu Meng, Dr. Kwek Cheng Chui, ada belakang sana, YB Howard Lee, anak muda ni, Datuk Ku Jaafar, mantan ambassador kita, mana Ku ada bersama-sama dengan kita. Datuk Ahmad Azam Abdul Rahman, sama. Tuan Yusmadi Yusof, Cikgu Azmi, ada Cikgu Azmi mana dia kedai? Tu Cikgu Azmi. Dan Datuk Ahmad Syabri tak dapat bersama sebab ada kematian, dan begitu jugalah dengan yang lain-lain. Tiga. Sehubungan dengan itu, jutaan terima kasih saya kalungkan juga kepada barisan penceramah, speakers dan pembincang yang saya lihat telah memberikan komitmen sepenuh hati dalam mengupas topik-topik yang dipertanggungjawabkan. Yang Amat Berhormat, berikut ialah beberapa cadangan-cadangan dan dapatan-dapatan. Following the two days retreat, we have summarized the following key takeaways for your kind attentions and actions. First, reclaiming Malaysia's status as a rule maker and shapers. Ada tak ada? The retreat recommended that Malaysia must take significant contributions as a rule maker and shapers at the international arena. The retreat viewed that Malaysia cannot be in the backseat and watch other nations take the lead in shaping the rules and regulations that govern our world today. The retreat highlighted that we must take charge and become the driving force behind the decisions that affect us all. The retreat strongly viewed that Malaysia must be proactive in our approach, taking the initiative to propose ideas and solutions that address the challenges facing our world today. Members of the retreat urge that Malaysia take the lead and become active participants in shaping the world we want to live in. Second, on the point of merakyatkan foreign policy, the retreat acknowledged that foreign policy begins at home. Members of the retreat recognize that it is essential that for the foreign policy to be grounded in domestic priorities and realities. To localize the foreign policy, the retreat recommended that Wisma Putra undertake the following actions. First, initiate active parliamentary diplomacy by mapping out members of parliament and senators to gauge their areas of interest and positions on salient issues and leveraging their voices and reputations and outreach to their followers. Second, mobilize citizen diplomacy through Malaysian diaspora as ambassadors for public diplomacy in the host country. Third, engage with various stakeholders, including college, university students, religious communities, think tanks, community leaders, civil society organizations, and others. Next, on enhancing inter-agency collaboration. In upholding the whole of government, whole of society, and whole of nation approaches, the retreat acknowledged the importance of Wisma Putra to work together with its stakeholders in a collaborative and cohesive manner. The retreat recognized the importance of fostering the culture of cooperation and collaboration among government agencies. The retreat further agreed that it is pertinent for Wisma Putra to work closely with civil society organizations, private sectors, and individuals to ensure that their efforts are aligned with our overall goals. Members of the retreat also agreed for Wisma Putra to undertake a more vigorous musyawarah and comprehensive engagements by including our stakeholders such as CCFP and the Association of Former Malaysia Ambassadors, or AFMA. Next, on the Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN 2025. In less than 2 years, Malaysia will be helming ASEAN once again. The retreat acknowledged that Malaysia must identify, as soon as possible, the key priorities and deliverables that Malaysia would set to achieve during the chairmanships. The retreat proposed for Malaysia to undertake an in-depth and comprehensive assessment to be made on the achievement of the 3 pillars of ASEAN, that is, political security, economics, and social-cultural pillars. On soft power, members of the retreat collectively agreed that Malaysia should fully leverage on the Anwar Ibrahim factor for Malaysia to further boost its soft power capabilities. Members of the retreat also viewed the significance of leveraging Malaysia's economic strengths in advancing the agenda of human security. The retreat recommended that Malaysia utilize the Malaysian Technical Cooperation Program, or MTCP, as a tool to further strengthen its soft power. The retreat also recommended for Malaysia to enhance its scientific and educational diplomacy, including through the internationalization agenda of the Ministry of Higher Education, that is Jangkauan Global Malaysia, JGM, and Education Malaysia Global Services. Members of the retreat recommended for Malaysia to promote the wider spectrum of Malaysian culture, such as the following: performing arts, literature, Bahasa Melayu as regional lingua franca, food and gastro-diplomacy films, Malay's Nusantara Language and Cultural Center, and Malaysia as a model of Islamic democracy. The retreat highlighted the need for Wisma Putra to boost global and moral standing through effective public diplomacy in order to increase Malaysia's visibility through comprehensive social media communication strategies such as TikTok diplomacy and Insta diplomacy. Next, on the middle power. There is an appetite expressed by some parties during the retreat to claim, or rather reclaim, Malaysia as a middle power. As Malaysia has long been recognized as a leader on the international stage, the retreat recommended that Malaysia must continue to perform in areas such as the following: peacemaking through the United Nations peacekeeping operations, championing the rights of the Muslim Ummah, MTCP, and South-South cooperation, and others. Towards this end, Wisma Putra will examine closely the aspirations to achieve Malaysia's status as a middle power. Next, on the point, empowering the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of MOFA. Ini kena PM kena dengar elok-elok. The retreat recommended that Wisma Putra take measures to ensure Malaysian diplomats perform to the best of their abilities. We must bring back the focus on human capital development and must be given additional financial resources to further propel Malaysian diplomacy at the international arena. While we were working together just now to the hall, PM was whispering to me, "Apa, you punya recommendation minta tambah lagi?" No, sir. There are a lot of things that we have discussed over the last 2 days. But under the stewardship of Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, we are very blessed actually in the recent budget 2023. Actually, our ministry has got more than we expected. I mean, minimally, which has increased actually from 800 million to 900 something, which is the increase of 12% more than. Thank you very much, Yang Amat Berhormat. It's a good sign, yeah. This is a good sign for us to do, because next year, inshallah, it won't be lowered down, and we hope it will be increased more. And hopefully, we will reach 1 billion budget. The retreat suggested for Malaysia to establish a world-class school of government to train its government officials, in particular Wisma Putra diplomats. Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, or IDFR, and Razak School of Government could collaborate to foster intellectual discourse between our diplomat and diplomatic corps. This is a very important suggestion from some of our members. We need to enhance our capabilities to face what PM always mentioned, the post-normal world now. We have to equip our diplomatic corps with all the necessary knowledge for them to face current challenges. The retreat also proposed for Wisma Putra to establish a research-based platform that will bring together CCFP members from a wide range of fields to provide insight and recommendation on the many complex issues that we face in the international arena. This approach will enable us to identify emerging trends and opportunities, anticipate potential challenges and risks, and develop proactive and effective strategies to advance our national interest. This research-based platform should become an important tool in ensuring that Malaysia remains at the forefront of global affairs. Next, on the Malaysia's future outlook on the African and Latin America regions. The retreat deliberated on Malaysia's future outlook on the African and Latin America regions, among others, the importance of these regions, both in terms of their economic potentials and their strategic significance, deepening our engagement with these regions. The possibility of opening more missions in these strategic locations. Next, on the internationalization of Malaysia Madani. The retreat recommended that Malaysia promotes dialogues and intellectual discourses on pertinent issues affecting Malaysians, such as Islamophobia, religious intolerance, and discrimination. The retreat highlighted the importance of promoting better understanding towards Islam and Muslims, both locally and internationally, to dispel misconceptions and stereotypes. The retreat recommended the establishment of a task force consisting of competent and multidisciplinary experts to implement the internationalization of the 6 Madani values. The retreat also recommended the establishment of a platform for dialogues and intellectual discussions on the causes, processes, and proper responses in countering issues of Islamophobia, religious intolerance, and discrimination. In this regard, Malaysia will promote the Madani values and aspiration by aligning them to our foreign policy. I think there are some other points, including economics recommendation, which will be highlighted later, and then we will also submit to your excellencies to peruse it. And the retreat recommended for Wisma Puasa to pursue a more proactive economic diplomacy in dealing with emerging markets and enhance its own economic and trade interest. Yang amat berhormat, jika nak diturutkan hati, saya nak sampaikan lebih panjang lagi. Banyak perkara yang ingin kita kupas, namun saya akur bahawa ini bukanlah platform yang sesuai untuk saya berbuat demikian, disebabkan oleh masa yang menceburui kita. Sekali lagi, bagi pihak KLN, kami rasa sangat terhormat atas kehadiran yang amat berhormat bersama-sama dengan kami pada petang ini. Tentunya kami ingin mendengar dan mendapat pandangan serta mengikuti visi atau wawasan yang amat berhormat untuk kita mengembalikan Malaysia di persada dunia. In short, we are here, sir, to hear and to follow your vision on making Malaysia great again. Thank you. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih, Datuk Seri.
Seterusnya, majlis dengan hormatnya menjemput Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Perdana Menteri Malaysia, untuk menyampaikan ucap tama beliau. Dengan penuh hormatnya, majlis mempersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Saudara Menteri Luar, Seri Zamri, KSN, KPPA, KSU, dan Menteri Menteri, saya juga ramai tokoh-tokoh diplomat yang terkemuka yang pernah berkhidmat dengan cemerlang dalam negara ini. Saya ucap terima kasih, satu penghormatan untuk saya. Seperti yang diketahui, bukan oleh semata-mata rakan-rakan semasa, tapi tokoh-tokoh lama, bahawa saya memang tidak pernah terkenal sebagai diplomat ataupun berpengalaman dalam bidang itu. Tetapi dalam kunjungan saya keluar, dan saya banyak juga menjelajah keluar negara, saya dapat menimba, belajar daripada peringkat awal lagi. Semasa saya di Universiti Melaya, saya diberi peluang atas keputusan merhum Tun Abdul Razak untuk hadir persidangan beliau sedunia pertama anjuran United Nations. Dan masa itu saya dilantik menjadi salah seorang dia panggil ad hoc advisory group to the Secretary of the United Nations on Youth Affairs. Itu je pengalaman saya. Dengan UN, walaupun selepas itu saya di UNESCO sebagai President of the Conference dan IMF World Bank sebagai Chairman Development Committee. Tetapi pendedahan dalam bidang luar ini tentunya sesuatu yang lebih canggih, lebih rumit, dan saya bernasib baik juga kerana masa peringkat muda saya agak dekat dengan Tan Sri Ghazali Syafi'i, dan saya masih ingat tatkala di pejabat dia satu hari, cara dia melatih dan mengajar memang kaedah lama yang tidak boleh dilakukan oleh KSU sekarang, di mana dia lempar fail depan saya kepada salah seorang pegawai yang kemukakan laporan. Jadi saya terkejut, tanya masa itu, Datuk Ghazali mengapa keras sangat? Dia kata, that's the only way to get them to learn. Oh my God. Saudara yang hormati sekalian, saya mendengar dan cuba menghadam dalam masa singkat apa yang disampaikan oleh Datuk Seri Zamri, Menteri Luar, merangkap Setiausaha Agung Barisan Nasional. Dan saya ucap terima kasih kepada beliau, KSU, kerana dalam masa singkat saya dalam kerajaan, kedekatan saya dengan Kementerian Luar ternyata pertama kerana kita menjelajah di negara-negara ASEAN utama, yang pertama, yang 5, dan keduanya kerana isu-isu antarabangsa nampak lebih mendekati kita. Ya. Kalau tanya saya beritahu saudara Zamri berulang kali, saya memilih untuk menumpukan perhatian dalam soal urusan domestik, kerana kita harus perkukuhkan kerajaan perpaduan, kita harus tumpu perhatian dalam bidang ekonomi dan memacu pertumbuhan ekonomi yang lebih meyakinkan. Kita mesti ikat semangat perpaduan kaum dalam negara kita yang sedikit sebanyak retak oleh kerana politik yang simpang siur. Tetapi nyata dalam pengalaman singkat ini, minat luar pada negara itu lebih tertumpu ketimbang atau berbanding dengan tahun-tahun sebelumnya. Saban hari atau saban minggu ada saja pemimpin luar negara yang menelpon atau video conferencing untuk meningkatkan hubungan dua hala dengan Malaysia. Dalam kunjungan kita ke luar negara juga sambutan luar jangka dan sangat baik. Tetapi saya akui ini kerana tradisi, kecekapan dan juga budaya yang ada di kalangan rakan-rakan di Wisma Putra. Jadi saya ucapkan terima kasih. Many years ago when I was in government, Tuan Abdullah Badawi, that time foreign minister, invited me to close this sort of a similar session. I think it was at AWANI. Some of the younger ones, some of the more senior ones would remember, of course. And I started off by saying that from my limited experience in government, what is clear is the level of competence and impeccable credentials I see from the first generation or following generations of Wisma Putra officials. Partly because of the training, the exposure, competence in the language, etc. And you at that time assess, for example, Wisma Putra, Treasury, probably EPU, the more outstanding agencies. And I appeal to the senior members of the Foreign Diplomatic Corps, or the Diplomatic Corps, and also the professionals at Wisma to try their level best to engage, give the necessary exposure and train the younger diplomats. You know, it is a lot of effort, of learning curve, of diplomatic encounters that would make them qualified professionally. And about that, without denying the fact that our diplomatic efforts has been generally regarded as quite outstanding compared to most developing countries. But this is the I think, responsibility of the most senior members, including those who have just retired, to undertake this. And I'm extremely pleased that the Minister and the Secretary General have taken that initiative to engage them, because their experience and exposure that they had internationally, at the UN and many other places, critical for the attempt to enhance the level of our diplomatic encounters with many other countries. I also acknowledge the fact that the challenges are quite different. The Minister alluded to the issue of post-normal times. It's true. So whilst experience and exposure is necessary, we have to acknowledge the fact that things have somewhat shifted. Post-normal times means that there is more chaos, more contradictions. Changes can be what is termed as spontaneous, but also simultaneous. I remember the former Secretary General of the UN referred to the term simultaneity, simultaneous. Things are happening at the same time, and you need really competent diplomatic professionals to be able to grasp and deal with these issues and advise the ministers or the cabinet accordingly. And how do you deal with these uncertainties? We thought that the Cold War has passed somewhat, but it has re-emerged in a more, I should say, different surrounding circumstances, economic more than just military, but it is affecting us. Our forefathers, the pioneers, the leading pioneers of ASEAN, I still stand to in many of my speeches around, I've always made that strong recognition, respect to the role of Tun Razak, Adam Malik, Tanat Koman, and some others in the region. They have given that sort of vision for ASEAN, a compelling case for regional community to survive, cohesive, standing for independence, of freedom, of progress, of course, at the same time, and having to deal with the contending forces of superpowers then, mainly Soviet Union and United States, but now with China, oftentimes contentious. So how we as a cohesive group are able to navigate this, at the same time maintaining our independence and sovereignty, and benefiting, and not to be drowned in this sort of antagonism. That leads to this issue of level of competence, of sophistication of the professionals that we have. Position of the present administration is somewhat the same. It's one issue that I, as opposition leader for decades, have not been in confrontation or with the authority of the government, is foreign affairs. As you know, most of my speeches in Parliament against almost everything that the government did, but not the foreign ministry, precisely because some of the issues of ASEAN as zone of peace, or having Malaysia to avoid these skirmishes with the powers, to continue to engage with most countries, in our case with China as an important neighbor, economically, politically, geopolitics, although we have some contentious issues with them on Spratly Islands, etc. Or the United States as a big trading partner, and now we have Amazon, AWS as a major investment into Malaysia. Europe, they have shown greater interest into Malaysia, leading Germany and the Netherlands and a few other countries. And of course, ASEAN. So I think our interest is ultimately economic. It's the economy. So economy remains a central focus because foreign policy must be dictated by the national interests. But what is the relevance of Madani? Madani reminds us finally, it is an attempt to ensure that we succeed as a nation, peaceful, but to be able to contribute to the understanding of humanity. So we have to take a position. I know the Foreign Minister is extremely nervous when I speak overseas, particularly touching on Myanmar. But I think what is diplomacy, what is progress, what is independence without ethics and values? So whilst protecting our interests, whilst continue to engage with all sectors, but there are, of course, positions or values that we must uphold. In the case of Myanmar, we have to deal with 200,000 refugees. We're dealing with a neighbor who has denied, who has ignored all principles of human rights. And we are grappled with the complex situation of having to deal with these number of refugees, not able to send back. And this has not been, the problem has been exacerbated because of the refusal of the military junta to even negotiate and to respect their neighbors in ASEAN. So we have a problem. And in every of the session, whether we be Prime Minister of Thailand or President of the Philippines or Prime Minister of Singapore and President Jokowi of Indonesia, I make it a point to strongly suggest that ASEAN must not only continue to engage, yes, but then think of some other effective means to resolve this, because otherwise we are subjected to these gross atrocities, not only at home, but affecting us as a nation. Now, how do you do it? I said, of course, I'm a junior as compared to the other senior leaders. I said, look, but we must be able to engage effectively, take a strong position. And the old notion, the old narrative about constructive engagement, to my mind, is not quite relevant anymore. Because you're doing the same thing for the last 4 decades. And people are being killed and thrown out of their country and affecting us and our welfare and our economy. And even politically, because you can see growing resentment of Malaysians in this period of difficulty, having to endure or even tolerate the presence of so many foreigners or illegals in this country. So how do you resolve? I think that's why you have the expertise of the Secretary General and his team. And of course, we have to continue to engage, and I have appealed to these countries to continue to give suggestions, because we cannot just choose to ignore, because of the old notion of non-interference. Now, yes, there's no interference. I'm not suggesting we should go and interfere and attack, but that position has cost us economic hardship and political ramifications, and therefore we cannot just choose to ignore. Of course, if they ask me, then what do you do? I say, look, then the senior leaders, and I will, of course, support any position that they take to ensure that our efforts are deemed to be more effective. Now, on other issues, of course, like the Palestinian issue, which is very close to our heart, again, there's a lot, but to general Malaysians, a lot of confusion. That's why I think when the minister, or in your recommendations, suggests about the domestic implications or participation, it is pertinent because it's not what generally the public or Malays or Muslims think. Yeah. It is, to quote Edward Said, is politics of dispossession. People have been deprived, thrown out of their land and their entire freedom, and the country has been just robbed. So it is have been dispossessed. Okay, it's contrary to some of the views that becomes anti-Jewish rhetoric or anti-West. It's just because the Western nations have become completely blinded to the atrocities inflicted upon the Palestinian people that we take a position. So once we continue to be more aggressive in our stance, taking a very strong position against the atrocities committed by the Israeli authorities, we need also to engage and educate our masses that this is about justice. This is about a community being dispossessed. And so there's that sort of engagement at the national level. And I think it makes sense to me that the prominent personalities, including the so-called ex-diplomats, they are never ex, they are always senior diplomats, must be fully not only recognized but utilized to go into universities and with the civil society to engage with society to get them to be more aware, because after all, Madani means not only ihsan and rahmah, and it will also humanity. Ihsan is humanity, and I think from your vast experience, you can probably help educate the masses on the meaning or an effectiveness of diplomacy. Of course, diplomacy can be interpreted in different ways. I remember Kissinger's diplomacy, which is finally the concept of the rich and the powerful. So it can be the Richelieu and the Bismarck and of course Kissinger. It's a prime example why diplomacy is devoid of ethics and values, and that's not Madani. Because to them, diplomacy is just a concept of the rich and the powerful. The rich nations and the powerful nations dictate what is beneficial to them, and never mind the principle of justice or humanity. We don't share that view. And although as a small trading nation, we have to grapple with having to engage with everybody, be friends with most countries, but we must not shirk from that major responsibility to inculcate the correct values and ethical principles. And how do you merge this pragmatic consideration and these ideals of humanity and values? And then I leave it to the experts in the Wisma Putra. On the issue of financial resources, I'm happy that since the minister is happy, I'm okay, I'm happy. But I think it is only proper that I share with you some of our domestic concerns. And I think we must understand that we have to grapple with some basic problem which has its relevance to the issue of values and ethics that you talk about. We are now having to grapple with 1.5 trillion debt. Now, okay, it's all figures, but what on earth can a group of political elite and leaders continue with such audacity to spend irresponsibly, to squander resources, and having to borrow without any concern that the future generations has to bear the burden? deficit has gone to 5.6% of GDP. Now, these figures are not just figures. They are a compelling case to prove that there is something wrong, grossly wrong, and to me, manifestly unjust, that stems from the issue of irresponsible and poor governance. Now, the duty of this government, this administration, whatever is being said by the past president, regardless, I'm confident that this coalition will survive until the end of its term. More than just a political rhetoric, I'm giving a strong message to Malaysia that we have to chart a different course. We must do this and effect this change, which is extremely necessary to save this country from the mess that we have been in. It's not a matter of choice. It's an imperative and also a moral imperative. To me, this administration must then take that position. Number one is an issue of good governance. And so in Parliament this morning, talking about flood mitigation, and many other projects, I just made a general ruling. All earlier decisions based on negotiated tender must be immediately stopped. And if the project is necessary or critical, then proceed on a fast-track basis, but with proper tender. How is it being tolerated? Not only by political masters, but where are the professionals? Where are the academicians? Why is this being tolerated for so long? The major scandals wouldn't have happened if we have that conscience to voice out and stop this road. Alhamdulillah, it's not too late, but it is critical. So I said, we renegotiate, have a proper tender, and virtually in every single exercise, we are able to save hundreds of millions of ringgit. And this has to be done. And I think this sort of message must be well understood by our professionals in the diplomatic service. That this is not the present administration must shift. Well, they say paradigmatic shift. As we have said decades ago, but there was no paradigm shift. There's just minor adjustments here and there. If you understand Thomas Kuhn, when he made reference with the paradigm shift, is a real shift from the obsolete, corrupt past to something else, something new. Or when Schumpeter talks about gale of creative destruction, he talks about not pursuing the same old obsolete ways, but to accept the fact that the old corrupt manners must crumble and must rebuild anew, creative. From the destruction, we have to be creative to think aloud. It's not necessarily have a direct bearing to diplomatic services. But then I want you to understand and appreciate what we have to grapple with. It's not easy, because you are dealing with those political elite who have been so powerful, who have billions at their disposal. It's not going to allow us to reign free in making these changes. But what choice do we have? And therefore, I'm determined to make sure that this succeeds. And I need your support, your understanding, including those of you overseas, serving the nation, and sacrificing your time. You are supposed to sleep. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. But I choose now to share with you this Madani concept because to me it's not just a new slogan, but I think it's certainly a new philosophy for this country in order to bring back not only past glory, but probably to enhance. I don't share the view that because I did serve and therefore there was a prime time, some of you, the senior diplomats, would remember when we had Kamdesu or Jum Wolfenson, the World Bank, coming to promote the East Asian Economic Miracle, the World Bank report, East Asian Economic Miracle. The Indonesian translation would be Mu'jizat Ekonomi. I didn't quite agree. I said menakjubkan, bukan mu'jizat, ini mu'jizat Nabi. But anyway, I, as a finance minister, chairman of the development committee of the World Bank and IMF, I chose then to caution Malaysians not to be lulled into complacency because of the great pious platitudes and tributes to us. Because I said there were problems, even at that time, abject poverty, corruption, inequality, which we have to address. Because if we think that we are already in a miraculous situation, we tend to be complacent and lull, I said. So I even at that time, and now it's worse. So let us then resolve to do something great for our country by setting that in order. Our officers, our diplomats must set this example. What it means to be a good, competent leader. Why do you serve in the principle of and observe the principle of good governance, where ethics and values is pertinent? Setting your priority right to serve the nation, which means you have a duty to encourage people to come as tourists, as investors, in order we bring light and hope to Malaysians. Jadi saya ucap terima kasih Saudara Zamri kerana sabar mendengar kuliah saya petang ni, dan terima kasih kerana kerjasama dan sokongan saudara, dan kita punyai potensi yang amat luas. Saya memilih untuk menjelaskan hal-hal yang merunsingkan, tapi saya tidak mewakili pandangan yang negatif. Saya membawa harapan. Saya yakin tentang keupayaan manusia untuk menjadi baik dan mengharap sesuatu yang baik. Saya tidak berhajat untuk mengorek dan mencungkil semua kelemahan-kelemahan lalu. Melainkan kalau ia melibatkan dana yang banyak yang mesti dipulangkan kepada negara. Saya dipukul setengah mati, saya maafkan. Kerana itu soal pribadi. Tapi kalau wang dicuri berbilion, saya tidak ada kuasa untuk memaafkan. Ini hak rakyat dan tugas badan-badan penguatkuasaan mestilah kembalikan wang itu kepada negara supaya negara ini diselamatkan, sekolah diperbaiki, sekolah daif diperbaiki, tanda-tanda anak-anak sekolah kita diperbaiki, klinik-klinik diperbaiki, dan nasib orang yang ditimpa kemalangan dan wabak COVID dan sekarang ini banjir dapat dibantu. Ini tanggungjawab kita bersama, dan caranya, kaedahnya adalah untuk membawa semangat perubahan ini. Dan ini saya tegaskan bukan suatu perkara yang mudah, kerana kita berdepan dengan kekuatan yang akan menghalang perubahan. Kalau dalam teori sains sosial kita tahu, ya, kita sebut umpamanya propensity to change dengan resistance to change. Orang buat andaian, resistance to change itu dari orang kampung-kampung makcik-makcik yang tak mahu perubahan. Tak benar. Kerana resistance to change itu adalah juga di kalangan political elite yang senang selesa dengan kuasa dan kepentingan dan cara rasuah mereka dan mewah mereka. Dia tidak mahu lakukan perubahan. Jadi, bila kita nak lakukan perubahan, ia juga terpaksa menghadapi sesuatu yang tidak mudah. Cuma, tentulah kita perlu kebijaksanaan supaya kita mengemudi, jangan terlalu deras, takut hanyut, jangan terlalu perlahan, takut tak sampai ke pelabuhan. Jadi bagaimana nak mengemudi ni lagu lama, Sayang Disayang. Ya, ingat? Ya, ini dahan jatuh menimpa batu kuburan, ibarat nakhoda yang tidak berhaluan. Sayang disayang. Jadi tak apa nanti KSU di Google lagu tu. Jadi sekali lagi saya ucap terima kasih dan saya anggap satu, kalau tak salah saya dalam sejak Kerajaan Perpaduan dengan Madani ini kementerian pertama yang menganjurkan sesi begini. Ini agak aneh sebab Kementerian Luar sepatutnya yang akhir yang fikir soal ini. Tapi ini suatu perubahan yang amat membanggakan. Saya ucap terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Yang Amat Berhormat.
Dimohon Datuk Seri kekal di pentas.
Majlis menjemput Menteri Luar Negeri untuk bersama-sama menyertai Yang Amat Berhormat di atas pentas untuk sesi soal dan jawab.
Saya ada habis ucapan, baru saya tengok ada draft text tadi.
Seterusnya, majlis ingin menjemput ketua-ketua perwakilan diplomatik bagi memulakan sesi soal jawab. Dimohon ketua-ketua perwakilan untuk menggunakan butang raise hand untuk mengajukan soalan. Majlis mempersilakan.
Silakan kot kalau ada. Kalau kita bagi, I think kita bagi dulu kepada kita punya missions. Any one of you from we have, I think if I'm not mistaken, we have 106 missions all around the world now watching us and following us. If you have any questions, I think you can pass a question first. I think instead of here in the hall. Siapa ada?
Malah Wakil Geneva, we saw a raise of hand. Yes. Dipersilakan.
Silakan.
Yes.
Geneva, ya? Introduce yourself, ya?
Menteri Luar Negeri, Menteri Timbalan Menteri, KSN, KPPA, KSU, ahli-ahli, CCFP yang dihormati. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang Amat Perdana Menteri, I have one question on refugee management. We have consistently come under scrutiny internationally on our treatment of refugees. So do you think that it is time for Malaysia to have a clear and transparent policy on refugees that not only be in line with international standards, but also based on all the Madani's concepts that you have mentioned, care, compassion, respect, and humanity, while at the same time contribute to strengthening our border controls, continue to protect our territorial integrity and national sovereignty, and also our domestic security. I think having a clear and transparent refugee management policy would go a long way towards addressing the economic and political ramifications of hosting a large number of refugees in the country, as you have mentioned. Thank you, Datuk Seri.
The Cabinet have deliberated on this issue quite a number of times. Yes, we agree that we have to make some adjustments I've said that no issue of ill treatment of the refugees. The immigration authorities, the depot, has been told, but we, in this sort of a narrative, we should be clear about the hypocrisy of many of Western governments too. They stopped, they completely disallowed others to come in. Our borders are porous. Name me one European country, it takes hundreds and thousands or millions like the Turkish government having a force to bring in and treated them relatively better. How many European Western countries have taken about now 500,000 illegals easily, crossed 1 million in this country? So I think because our borders are porous, so whilst acknowledging the fact that we need to take measures, and we are doing so, but I think to be just allowing them to dictate or to, I should say, continue this sort of condescending position against other countries. This is totally not acceptable. So in our diplomatic context, while we are doing so, which is true. I mean, the cabinet actually deliberated on this issue, and we made a decision that things has to improve. But at the same time, we should not be on the defensive. We should tell them, you take them half. Take half of them, and then lecture us on what needs to be done further. Okay? Or deal with the situation, like in Myanmar, or for that matter, the Palestinian plight, that in many ways you help to create. So so yeah, I'm sounding a bit like Mahathir on this, yes. No, but instead of just attacking them, I think I shift a bit, because I think we do acknowledge some of our concern, weaknesses, and we need to remedy them. But I don't want us in the diplomatic service to be too defensive, because the hypocrisy is very clear, that they make it so difficult, in fact, so discriminative. If people from Myanmar coming in, Rohingyas are Muslims, many are non-Muslims, the Koreans and the rest, we accept them. We don't discriminate based on the race. Thank you.
Thank you. When can we get from the floor now? If any one of you, any question from the floor? Before we pass back to our mission, if you have any, yeah, Howard.
Thank you, Yamak Muhammad. I'm going to say what no one wants to say. 12% is enough, but the way it's been allocated is not enough. No one's going to say it, I'm going to say it. Because I think fundamentally, I'm going to bring it up in Parliament, but essentially I feel that from what we've heard, that we have enough in terms of emolument, in terms of increasing atau nak menambah atau mencukupi keanggotaan, tapi in terms of programmatic stuff in the field, out there in the missions, definitely we have heard some kekangan tertentu lah, sampai adanya misi-misi yang dah lebih 10 tahun yang tak buat National Day celebration. So itu satu, kalau yang amat berhormat dan Menteri Kewangan boleh pertimbangkan carilah cara dan tempat lain di mana pengagihan yang wajar boleh dalam agenda perbincangan Majlis Keselamatan Negara, yang kebanyakannya kalau dari segi strategi pencegahan konflik atau bila adanya konflik dan dia dibawa ke dalam Majlis Keselamatan Negara, sebenarnya Menteri Luar Negeri tak ada dalam MKN atau secara induknya dalam aktanya. Dan perkara ini pun sebagai ahli parlimen jiran Timur di sebelah aku saja, saya telah menjalankan tanggungjawab saya sebagai ahli parlimen untuk membawa dalam parlimen bagi pertimbangan eksekutif untuk pertimbangkan tindakan yang sewajarnya, pemandangan yang berhormat Perdana Menteri dalam perkara ini. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Kalau peruntukan itu cadang kalau kita nak potong daripada pendidikan ke kesihatan begitu. Pendidikan kita tambah kerana saya tidak boleh terima pendidikan yang ke klinik dengan kesihatan. Saya terima kenyataan di mana begitu banyak sekolah taif tanpa bertanda sebetul dan klinik kesihatan yang sangat taif. Jadi oleh itu kita tambah 1 bilion ringgit tambah. Jadi oleh yang dan kemudian ada kemiskinan tegak. Kita berdepan dari sebab saya mulakan dengan kekangan keuangan, berdepan dengan masalah yang rumit dalam negara. Pengurusan, penyediaan, maintenance itu paling lemah. Jadi lihat saja kuartus pegawai kerajaan seluruh negara dan luar negara. Lihat saja dewan-dewan dari sekolah Majlis kepada Dewan Kedutaan Jakarta. Kebanyakan semua ada masalah. Jadi kita terpaksa tentukan kekamaan permulaan. Baru tahun ini bila saya sebut apa permulaan? Kemiskinan tegak 130,000. Saya tidak mahu izinkan hal ini berlaku kerana bagi negara yang semakmur Malaysia tak boleh tangani 130,000. Bunganya miskin tegak maknanya tak cukup makan atau tak ada susu untuk anak. I will not tolerate. Jadi arahan saya bagi utama ini memerlukan resources tambahan. Kedua, saya sekolah taif dan klinik kesihatan dan juga beberapa kemudahan asas kesihatan. Jadi sebab itu kita ada peningkatan dari segi peruntukan untuk kesihatan dan pendidikan. Kemudian tentunya dia melibatkan penambahan kecil yang lain kerana alhamdulillah walaupun kita mula dengan rumit harga minyak meningkat dan hasil yang dikutip dari cukai itu meningkat jauh lebih tinggi, lebih daripada unjuran kita. Dan semalam di LHDN saya kata jangan hanya kutip cukai daripada orang bawah sebab kalau di Amerika yang paling kaya di Amerika itu tak bayar cukai. Dan saya tidak boleh terima kenyataan di Malaysia yang maha kaya bayar sendiri. Jadi itu akan kita lakukan. Jadi untuk tahun ini bermula. Saya dengar saya melawat memang allowance pegawai di luar itu harus perhatian. Ini soal dengan bukan ringgit dan sebagainya. Jadi kita faham. Dan bagilah kita tahun ini selesaikan masalah sekolah taif, klinik taif, kemudian kesihatan dan orang paling miskin. Tahun depan kita keluar sikit. Kalau boleh begitu. Dan soal MKN ini hal-hal yang ditetapkan dalam beberapa kementerian yang kritikal. Tapi kita akan undang, tidak ada masalah. Kalau ada isu yang melibatkan input Kementerian Luar, kita akan undang Menteri Luar, tidak masalah. Peruntukan itu membolehkan. Terima kasih.
Boleh lagi terusan sebelum itu kita bagi kat mission dulu and then we come back to you. Mission
Datuk, daripada Malaukin Ottawa.
Ottawa ke Odo? That's how you pronounce it. Silakan.
Assalamualaikum Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri, Yang Berhormat Menteri Luar Negeri, Yang Berhormat Timbalan Menteri Luar. Nama saya Seri daripada Malaukin Ottawa, Kanada. Soalan saya adalah mengenai isu pembangunan mampan atau sustainable development. Agenda pembangunan negara kita sekarang ini memberikan tumpuan yang jelas kepada pemulihan ekonomi dan memastikan kemakmuran negara kita dapat diambil secara adil dan seksama. Soalan saya, bagaimanakah kerajaan kita dapat memastikan kelestarian alam sekitar juga diberikan keutamaan atau sekurang-kurangnya tidak diabaikan bila mana negara mengajar pembangunan ekonomi yang besar. Saya bertanya kerana isu-isu berkaitan sustainable development ini sering dibangkitkan dan dikaitkan dengan aktiviti ekonomi oleh negara-negara luar, terutamanya negara-negara barat, termasuklah Kanada, negara tempat saya bertugas sekarang. Itu soalan saya. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Kalau dibaca Madani soal kemapanan atau skrip atau sustainability, selain daripada pertumbuhan ekonomi, soal persekitaran, sekitar, climate change, the impact, itu diberikan keutamaan. Dan dalam pendakwaan kita telah tekankan hal yang sedemikian. Dan dalam beberapa perbincangan awal dalam Tuan Menteri soal penguasaan, membalakan dan terus dan pencemaran industri, pencemaran itu semua keputusan kita pertama tidak diizinkan sama sekali. Kalau dari segi itu, jadi saya setuju dengan Siti bahawa langkah-langkah itu diambil. Tapi kadang-kadang sekali lagi saya pernah nanti duduk dalam pencarian desa sangat baik dan saya guna. Tapi kadang-kadang bila dalam naratif barat ini dia ambil pendekatan seolah kita tidak mengira sama sekali. Kita kena ada satu penjelasan. Saya tidak petikan kemapanan sustainability itu mesti memerlukan pengawalan alam sekitar. Tak ada kompromis. Tapi janganlah buat andaian kerana industri ini pertanian atau kelapa sawit itu semestinya merosakkan. Kalau ada kawalan penjagaan jumlah hutan, program reforestation, kemudian renewable energy, yang semua menjadi keutamaan kita sekarang, maka dia patut bagi kita ruang sedikit. Sebab itu dalam isu kelapa sawit, Zafur maklum kita agak keras dalam perundingan dengan UK, menjadi syarat. Kita tegaskan, we will not concede. Kerana ini juga adalah hak kita yang memastikan kedudukan ekonomi. Jadi akhirnya nampak ada penyelesaian yang baik supaya mereka tidak menekan. Dalam perbincangan saya telefon dengan Martin Luther dan Menteri Netherlands, saya pergi ke muka yang sama dan dia nampak lembut sikit lah daripada sikap rakan-rakan di Eropah untuk memberi pertimbangan supaya jangan menekan kita dalam soal industri minyak kelapa sawit. Kalau begitu bersyarat baik dengan ada kegiatan di peat soil dan emission of carbon from peat soil itu terlalu tinggi. Okey, we can concede. Tapi jangan dianggap semua tanah kelapa sawit dia peat soil. Tak betul. Saya pernah bincang dengan grup parliamentarians di France. Dia assume, dia kata, oh you see, peat soil, highest emission of carbon, and Malaysia is involved. It's only pockets in Sarawak. It was the past. No new peat soil proof for this purpose. Jadi, sebab tu saya ingat macam kumpulan diplomat ini, dia mesti tidak seperti yang kita harapkan, yang kita andaikan. Dia mesti betul-betul prepare dengan hujah yang cukup kukuh untuk pertahankan kepentingan kita. Dan ini maknanya latihan dalam bidang specialization, bidang baru. Macam cyber security, soal climate impact dan sebagainya itu. Dan juga defending some opposition statement, termasuk industri kelapa sawit. Dan saya harap ini masuk dalam jadual pendedahan kita, terutama untuk Eropah dan beberapa negara lain. Saya tadi tentang tidak singgung tentang hubungan dengan negara lain. Saya setuju supaya kita juga dekati. Kerana potensi di Afrika itu kadang diremehkan. Potensi ekonomi di Afrika itu besar. Kalau dulu kita bawa Afrika itu untuk jadi alat propaganda perkenalkan Malaysia, saya lebih belajar yang terlalu tinggi. Saya tidak berhajat buat begitu. Ajak Mugabe, nalayan dia, ajak dia Mugabe Nomo. potensi pelaburan, dan beberapa kawasan Afrika itu memang menjadi tumpuan kita dalam potensi pelaburan itu. Terima kasih banyak.
Maybe one question now. Datuk Roslan is now. Could you please allow sini?
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Menteri. Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, you have partially went ahead of me, my question. Basically, very refreshing to hear your speech and policy direction. As I said earlier on, you have a little bit went ahead in answering my question, which is our friends in the African continent, as well as Latin America, through our ambassadors and high commissioners, have been asking, where is Malaysia? Is Malaysia abandoning us vis-a-vis bilaterally as well as regionally, just to get some policy direction from you?
Terima kasih, Roslan. As I said, first of course, in terms of diplomatic engagement, but second also the economic potential. I think due to both considerations, we should enhance bilateral relations and engagement with the region. Of course, we have to do gradually, particularly if it means opening up new embassies, only when we are ready. But I think the engagement, we have to be more proactive, we have to be more aggressive in that stance, because they have been very supportive of us. And in the initial contact, many friends from Africa and America wanted to not only explore and enhance bilateral relations. So I share your concern that we should not be focusing on China, India, Europe, and America, and to neglect the importance of Africa and Latin America. Malaysia must rise to its time to be also an effective spokes country speaking on behalf of the third world concerns of Africa. It may be not necessary to pronounce and deal with. I don't take that position. I think I am for engagement, but I think we should present a position that shows a lot of compassion, care for the plight of the developing world. We should continue to be exploited and marginalized in many ways. We must therefore proceed, and I think I will leave it to Mr. Kerajaan and the team to advise us and what steps need to be taken to ensure this effective engagement. Not only government to government, many of you have already alerted the fact that professionals, universities, and this I've done all the trips in ASEAN. Government is one, business community, professionals, civil society. I think it's very important. Thanks.
Datuk Seri, we have 3 lagi malawakil. Malawakil Rabat. Silakan.
PM allows another question probably from Malawakil. And
One question.
Please.
My name is Asana. I am Morocco. I was going to ask a question on economics in Africa, but YB, you have sort of answered it, and Datuk Roslan has also raised it. So if you allow me, maybe a strategic question, and this is actually encouraged by your protocol YB regarding Myanmar, just slightly earlier. Now, Malaysia shares a special, maybe even a privileged relationship with China. Now, recognizing China's larger concerns vis-a-vis containment, etc., in the South China Sea, which does, then do you think YAB, Malaysia could invite China to have a new and different approach to the South China Sea issue? One which would hold its ASEAN partners close rather than alienating us. For example, why not invite China to adhere to UNCLOS, which it does generally, to come out and recognize all country's maritime territory and then offer to maybe guarantee our maritime sovereignty against, should there be encroachment by larger powers or encroachment in the region. Do you think maybe we could use our special position with China to sort of invite them to have a different approach on this issue, which has been simmering for a very long time? Thank you very much.
I've been new in the game. I'm junior in this human ASEAN team. What I've done, including my discussions with President Bombo Marcos, is to suggest that we remain very cohesive in ASEAN, to maintain excellent relations with China, and at the same time taking a position, engaging with them, and saying that we don't have a choice but to protect our territory. And if we have any sort of contentious issues, we must continue to engage, but preferably engage as a cohesive ASEAN than to do it separately. I mean, Bombo Marcos seems to be in full agreement with this position. This is consistent with his view. But I don't think we can be expected to do much more for now. We are dealing with a major power in the region, or the power in the region. So, but because China has very good relations with us, and Malaysia is considered to be a friend, so I think we will need to utilize this, engaging them in other fields that we agree, but on these more contentious issues, to continue to have an effective engagement. And I agree with you that the best manner is to make sure they have a cohesive position in ASEAN, to take a position on a multilateral basis to engage with China. Thank you. No, sorry, because I'm going to go back to the office. I'm not going back. Because this morning from 8 in the morning I was in the Treasury for the day in Parliament, and Mampu, and I'm here, and I have to go back to the office. Humble apologies.
Dengan soalan terakhir tersebut, maka berakhirlah sesi interaktif bersama Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri.
Majlis seterusnya menjemput Tuan Yang Terutama Datuk Georgie Samuel, Duta Besar Malaysia ke Thailand, untuk menyampaikan ucapan penghargaan mewakili semua ketua perwakilan diplomatik Malaysia di luar negara. Dipersilakan Tuan Yang Terutama Datuk.
Saudara dan saudari Majlis, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Perdana Menteri Malaysia, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Raja Dr. Seri Menteri Luar Negeri, Yang Berhormat, Yang Bahagia Ketua Setiausaha Negara, Yang Bahagia Ketua Pengarah Perkhidmatan Awam, Yang Bahagia Ketua Setiausaha Pembendaraan, Yang Bahagia Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Luar Negeri, serta Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian lain, rakan-rakan sejawat yang saya hormati, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian. Salam sejahtera dan selamat petang. Bagi pihak ketua-ketua perwakilan Malaysia di luar negeri, izinkan saya merakamkan setinggi-tinggi terima kasih dan penghargaan kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim kerana sudi meluangkan masa menghadiri sesi interaksi dengan ketua-ketua perwakilan diplomatik Malaysia di luar negeri. Walaupun sesi ini diadakan secara maya, namun dia telah berjaya menyediakan satu platform atau wadah kepada kami untuk mendengar dan menghayati secara sendiri amanah dalam kami menjalankan tanggungjawab mempertahankan kedaulatan dan kepentingan Malaysia di pasaran bangsa. Indeed, it is a single honor and a great privilege for us, the heads of nations, to avail of this opportunity to listen to your inspiring and thought-provoking speech, especially on how you aspire to elevate Malaysia's stature in regional and global affairs. It is most reassuring to see Datuk Seri's disposition towards democracy, justice, You have created a clear policy setting and agenda on ethical issues, namely good governance, ethical policy making, and a relentless drive on anti-corruption efforts, in which all have produced a new euphoria of confidence. Indeed, the Malaysia Madani blueprint and concept that Datuk Seri espoused spells a new chapter for our nation, where success has to be shared equally and equality of progress with reality-based development. It represents a bold new intent to elevate Malaysia's standing, profile and image. Once again, thank you, Datuk Seri, for sharing your words of wisdom and aspirations with us. We undividedly commit ourselves and pledge our loyalty to the government in pursuing Malaysia's national interests. I also wish to thank Yang Berhormat Menteri Luar Negeri and Wisma Putra for organizing this session and giving us the opportunity to listen and interact with Datuk Seri, our Prime Minister. Akhir sekali, saya bagi pihak ketua-ketua perwakilan diplomatik di luar negeri ingin mendoakan kesejahteraan dan kesihatan kepada Datuk Seri dan isteri serta seluruh anggota pentadbiran kerajaan. Kami juga mendoakan kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa agar sentiasa melimpahkan rahmat-Nya kepada kita semua serta melindungi negara yang tercipta ini dari sebarang unsur negatif supaya kita terus maju, makmur dan mendapat perlindungan dari Yang Maha Esa. Sekian, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Tuan Yang Terutama Datuk.
Seterusnya, majlis dengan hormatnya menjemput Yang Berhormat Menteri Luar Negeri untuk menyampaikan cenderahati kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri.
Terima kasih Datuk Seri. Seterusnya majlis dengan segala hormatnya menjemput Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri dan Yang Berhormat Menteri Luar Negeri untuk kembali ke tempat duduk.
Dijemput pihak media untuk kehadapan untuk sesi bergambar.
Div-div kehormat dan sidang hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, marilah kita merakamkan detik yang bermakna ini dengan sesi bergambar dengan Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri.
Sidang hadirin dimohon untuk berdiri di tempat duduk masing-masing. Dijemput juga ketua-ketua perwakilan diplomatik untuk memberikan lambaian kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri. Majlis merakamkan ucapan terima kasih.
Dengan ini berakhirlah sesi Pemukiman Kementerian Luar Negeri 2023. Majlis seterusnya menjemput Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri diiringi oleh Menteri Luar Negeri ke ruang sidang media di belakang Dewan bagi sesi sidang media. Majlis mempersilakan.
Para hadirin di dalam Dewan dimohon untuk meninggalkan majlis menggunakan pintu di sebelah kiri Dewan.
Jom balik. Terima kasih. Time for coming.
Manis sebentar itu kopi ya.
Panjang ni ambil.
Sakit jiwa aku.
FS ada kan? Apa
Makan kat bawah. Maaf.
Dengan suara FS masuk semua. Dengan suara FS tak boleh.